All right, so greetings and welcome to our webinar. The topic is economic stability considerations for service members, veterans, and their families. I have the pleasure of introducing our moderator, Stacy Owens. Ms. Owens is the Military and Veteran Affairs Liaison for SAMHSA. She is honored to have the opportunity to facilitate collaborative efforts to improve the mental health of our nation's service members, veterans, and families. Prior to joining SAMHSA, she served the SMVF population as a clinical social worker at the VA and DoD. She earned a Master of Social Work degree from the University of Texas and a Bachelor of Social Work degree from the Prairie View A&M University. She comes from a proud military family, and they are her inspiration for supporting the mental well-being of SMVF. So without further ado, your moderator, Stacy Owens.
Thank you so much, Chantel. And thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar on economic stability considerations for service members, veterans, and their families. The topic of economic stability doesn't always necessarily come to mind when we think about our nation's service members, but it's a really important consideration when we think about military families as a whole, as well as what financial life might look like after military service is complete. And so thank you so much for coming and joining us to discuss this important topic. Before we move forward, just want to mention that the views, opinions, and content expressed in this presentation may not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, or policies of SAMHSA, VA, or Department of Labor. Next slide, please. This webinar is being sponsored by SAMHSA's Service Members, Veterans, and Their Families Technical Assistance Center, which partners with states, territories, and communities to increase behavioral health support for the SMVF community. SAMHSA is the agency within the Department of Health and Human Services that leads efforts to ensure that mental health and substance use treatment needs of all Americans are understood, including the needs of the SMVF community. Next slide, please. The SMVF TA Center supports these efforts in a number of ways, including monitoring evolving trends, providing technical assistance, training tools, and consultation, as well as identifying and encouraging the adoption of best and promising practices, supporting the planning and implementation of interagency teams, and supporting the training of SAMHSA stakeholders and grantees. Next slide, please. The SMVF TA Center does that through a number of activities, including policy academies and implementation academies, crisis intercept mapping workshops, webinars like this one, smaller learning communities, technical assistance calls, subject matter expert consultation, and resource dissemination. Next slide, please. So for today's learning objectives, our goals for you today are to be able to recognize the critical role of employment, income support, and housing in achieving comprehensive economic stability and well-being for SMVF. We aim to give you tools for translating military skills and employment resources for SMVF, as well as identifying resources and tools for guidance and supports to assist in informed financial decisions. And last but not least, learn about different homeless and housing resources and programs, as well as the SAMHSA-funded SOAR initiative for veterans. Next slide, please. To support us in this endeavor today, we have three dynamic presenters who are all working in the space of economic stability considerations for SMVF. We'll hear from Matthew Passmore, who serves as the Regional Veterans Employment Coordinator with Department of Labor's Veterans Employment and Training Service, which is known as DOL Vets for short. We'll also hear from Eric Elbajan, who serves as the Director of VA's National Veterans Financial Resource Center within the Rocky Mountain MIREC for suicide prevention. This program that Eric oversees is known as FinVet for short. And we'll also hear from Jen Elder, who serves as the Director of SAMHSA's Homeless and Housing Resource Center. So first up, our first speaker will be Matthew Passmore. Next slide, please. Just to let you know a little bit about Matthew, he is a 2011 graduate of the United States Military Academy at West Point, He's a combat veteran himself, uh, and his work at DOL Vets actually covers two of the regions there. And he collaborates with employers, nonprofits, as well as federal entities to enhance veteran employment outcomes and promote integration into diverse industries. Matthew, the floor is yours.
All righty. Thank you so much for that intro. So, if we're on the title slide, if we can go ahead and go to the next slide, please. Should be the About the Speaker slide. So my name is Matthew Passmore. As previously mentioned, I'm the Regional Veterans Employment Coordinator for the Boston and Philadelphia regions. So in my role as an RVEC, I facilitate the integration of veterans into the workforce by working with employers and simplifying their processes to make it essentially easier to easier to find and hire those within the veteran military community. So, of course, that's a very multifaceted approach. It includes connecting with employers, with resources at the federal, state, and local level, leveraging resources and programs to reduce employer costs, addressing skill gaps, and just much, much more, to include leveraging strategic partnerships, which is a critical step employers should leverage to go ahead and streamline their overall recruitment activities. So, for today's discussion, I'll be providing a brief 101, Vets 101 on our agency so that you all can go ahead and become more acquainted with our supportive portfolio of programs and services that are available to the military and veteran community. So I know that a lot of you are providers, supporting that military and veteran community. We might have a lot of military and veterans on the call. Perhaps we may even have some recruiters on the call as well, maybe some employers and what have you. I promise you that you will definitely learn something new with what's to come. Now, I have a short amount of time. I have a lot of slides to go through. So if you wanted a deeper dive into some of the things that's being covered today, there will be a learning session next month where I'm going to go ahead and go into a little bit of deeper dive. All right, next slide. So who are we? So to keep it simple, we are the spearhead for the federal government for anything and everything employment related to the military and veteran community. So in addition to doing all that we do to support our military and veteran community through programs and initiatives with our agency's portfolio, we also serve as the voice of DOL in the veteran and employment space. So we also serve as that voice for veterans within DOL, leveraging all the different DOL agencies and resources on behalf of employment to our community. So the next slide does a fantastic job in providing you with a nice screenshot on what exactly that looks like. So this should be on slide 4 now. So I would like to point out that one agency that is not on this slide that we have a great partnership is, of course, our Office of Apprenticeship. But a little bit later on, I have a few additional slides that kind of hit on that. But here you can go ahead and see all the different sub-agencies within DOL that all support veterans. You'll see a lot of things that in this presentation, actually from some of our partners. So in some future slides, we'll go ahead and see some unemployment data, and that's provided by our partners over at BLS. So next slide, please. So now we're on slide 5. So in addition to internal partners with our agency, we also leverage various external partners as well in support of our shared mission to go ahead and support the military and veteran community. So it is important to note, I mean, you'll see a lot of stuff on these slides, but it is very important to note that this is just a few of many, many partnerships that exist out there that are within our ecosystem. There's just not enough space on a single slide to go ahead and show just the multitude of partnerships. But what you do see in partnerships that are leveraged include a multitude of veteran service organizations or VSOs, a lot of nonprofits, private sector partners, as well as federal partners, which include our partners, of course, at the Department of Veteran Affairs, which you'll be hearing from a little bit later today. Next slide, please. So now we should be on slide 6, this going ahead and showing veteran demographics. So I imagine most of you, to include myself, are huge fans of data and statistics because they can go ahead and generally provide some answers to questions and also help you identify some trends. So shifting gears, this slide, it does just that in providing a quick snapshot of data related to veteran demographics within the workforce. So to go ahead and get more information on this, of course, please visit us over at our websites at DOL Vets. Next slide. So now we should be on slide 7, which is covering veteran attributes in the workplace. Now, this is one of my favorite slides that I like to go ahead and incorporate into my briefs to employers to go ahead and create that greater buy-in as to why they want to go ahead and hire veterans. because it highlights many of those attributes that veterans go ahead and bring to the table. And let's be honest, if you're an employer on the call, or if we were to go ahead and put ourselves in the shoes of an employer, I mean, who would not want an individual on the team that inculcates everything that's displayed here? So it also helps me to go ahead and address perhaps some lesser known points, such as highlighting the fact that our country's military is in fact a direct reflection of our society. So that being said, and you'll see that one thing in the middle is the diverse backgrounds. We come from all backgrounds and creeds. We have diverse talent, and whenever someone hires a veteran, they are in fact accomplishing any diversity initiatives incorporated within their organization. Next slide, please. All right, so now we should be on slide 8, title being a good business decision to hire veterans. So I'm sure many of you perhaps have watched that movie Men in Black, and if you have, you remember there's this scene where Will Smith is in the room. They're all looking for recruits to join that agency. And then he asks the question, he goes, exactly why are all of us here? And then you have that one U.S. Army officer in West Point grad that goes ahead and stands up and he says, because you want the best of the best of the best, sir. Right now, it makes sense that there was someone from the military that was there, because it is no joke that hiring someone from the military and veteran community is a very good business decision. So this kind of highlights some points. Don't have time to go through every single one, but one thing is some current data from our partners over at Department of Defense shows that only 23% of our 17 to 24-year-old population even qualify for military service right now. So of course, not all of those 24% of individuals join the military. It's a very small amount of those that end up doing just that. But you in fact do get the best of the best. So building off this topic, next slide, please. We should be on slide 9. It's going to go ahead and show that veterans have consistently outperformed their peers or their counterparts. So here's just a few of many studies that out there that should go ahead and showcase veterans earning higher incomes and being more likely to go ahead and receive promotions, again, compared to their counterparts. Next slide, please. So now we should go ahead and be on slide 10. And when it comes to employment, as you may see here on the graph provided by our partners over at BLS, veterans have consistently over the years maintained a lower employment rate compared to those who are not veterans. So this information is in fact updated monthly. And to stay on top of the most recent data, please feel free to go ahead and visit our website and explore. So that could be either through a quick search, through any sort of search engine, DOL Vets. Also, if you were to go ahead and type in your search bar, veterans.gov, it's going to go ahead and automatically take you to our DOL Vets website. All right, next slide. So we should be on slide 11, and you should be seeing a map of the U.S., and this helps answer the question, now, where are we, right? Better question, where are we not, right? So we maintain a national presence with the team of dedicated professionals across the country, ensuring veterans and employers they have access to support services wherever they are. Next slide, please. So here, what we do at Vets can all be captured in our mission. So our mission abides by the 4 Ps. That's to go ahead and prepare our veterans and the military community for meaningful careers, provide them with employment resources, protect their rights, and promote employment opportunities. So our vision, and that go ahead and that all bleeds over into our vision and priorities. Next slide, please. You should be seeing a giant arrow. So this mission shapes our priorities and visions, which is to ultimately enable the entire military and veteran community to achieve their full potential in the workforce. So the next few slides that I'm going to go ahead and show will now dive into a little bit of how we just do that. So next slide, please. So on this slide, you should be seeing information about our transition assistance program, or also known as our TAP program. And this helps support that first P that I mentioned of prepare. So TAP is a cornerstone program that provides critical employment preparation services to transitioning service members. Each year, we deliver thousands of workshops worldwide to go ahead and help individuals navigate their transition into the civilian workforce. The variety of topics covered include resume writing, interview skills, career planning, and just much, much more. Again, on our website, there's a lot of information that we provide. So all this, the curriculum, if any individual transitioned out of the military and they didn't have that hard copy or they misplaced or what have you, they can always go back to our DOL Vets website to go ahead and retrieve all that information and also attend virtual classes and what have you. But in addition to TAP, we also have various TAP supplemental programs, which I'll now go ahead and dive into with our next slide. So the next slide that you should be seeing right here is on teams. So we recognize the unique challenges that military spouses face in maintaining employment due to frequent relocations and just that military lifestyle. So our teams initiatives extends those TAP resources to military spouses through various virtual sessions, and various topics are go ahead and covered, as you can see on that right-hand side of the slide, providing them with career guidance and employment support. Now, on the topic of military spouses, next slide, please, is to go ahead and help support the various employment challenges that we are currently tracking. So you should be seeing those employment challenges up here on slide 17. So there's a lot that goes into being a military spouse. We fully understand that. We recognize, and we're just doing our darndest, our best to go ahead and address and support these efforts. Next slide, please. So this slide right here, it goes ahead and provides some additional information, as well as some stats on our military spouse population that I will go ahead and give you all just a few seconds to absorb, and just a few seconds, because just a few seconds per slide is what I have right now. But you can see one thing that I'll point out there is that they tend to move 10 times more frequently than their civilian counterparts. That is something. There's a lot that goes into that. All right, next slide, please. Okay, so the next slide goes ahead and further drives into the challenges military spouses face, as you can go ahead and see here. One thing pointing out, 16%, roughly 16% military spouse unemployment rate. That is something that we are trying to lower. Also, additionally, about 35–40% of our military spouses are mentioning underemployment, which is another issue that we are trying to go ahead and feverishly address and support. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so lastly, here are some additional resources military spouses may leverage, and where you may also, as a provider, may also find some great data, even if you're an employer, great data or supportive resources related to some of the challenges faced. I would like to point out that these partners as well, they also support the veteran community at large too. So military spouses, veterans, they can all go ahead and find some really great support with these partners listed here. All right, so now diving back, next slide, please. Diving into some more TAP supplemental programs, and you should be seeing our ENPP program up here on the slides, also known as our Employment Navigator and Partnership program. So this is a pilot program right now that is just seeing tremendous success right now. It essentially offers a personalized approach to career planning by connecting transitioning service members and their spouses with dedicated employment navigators. So these professionals, they go ahead and provide one-on-one tailored assistance and then link them into one of the employers and partners that we have within the EMPP ecosystem, which you can see they offer one of 9 of those partner services on the right-hand side that you can see there. Next slide, please. So another thing, part of our TAP supplemental program is our OBTT program, or Off-Base Transition Training Program, which is another pilot initiative aimed at extending these transition services beyond military bases and offering workshops and seminars in communities where veterans live. So this program ensures accessibility to critical resources even after separation in the military. So next slide, please. So a phenomenal program that kind of goes hand in hand with the transitioning service member community is the DoD Skill Bridge program. So we do not run this program. DoD overall manages this program, but we are a heavy partner that's involved within it as well. It's just phenomenal for transitioning service members to go ahead and participate in, where they can go ahead and receive industry training during their final months on services. And it just really helps provide that smooth transition into civilian employment. I will let you know that this is a wildly popular program. I go ahead and I advocate for this with the employers that I go ahead and engage with. They love it because there's no direct cost ultimately provided to those employers. They are essentially still an active duty service member receiving their base pay, all the benefits that come with being active duty, housing allowance, TRICARE benefits, and so on. The only thing that changes is their official place of duty now becomes that place of business where that Skill Bridge program is based out of. Next slide, please. So I did mention that I would go ahead and go back and have some slides that focus on our relationship with our Office of Apprenticeship. So we work quite heavily with them, and this is another just tremendous opportunity that service members can go ahead and, the military and veteran community can go ahead and leverage. Next slide, please. So you can see here on this slide that goes ahead and provides some of the wage outcomes when it comes to participating in apprenticeships, a lot of other great studies that go ahead and show just the benefits of leveraging an apprenticeship program. Next slide, please. In this slide, I guess, is more so geared towards employers, right? So this is another strategic pipeline that we try to go ahead and have employers adopt as a pipeline. Should they go ahead and create a DOL registered apprenticeship program? This now goes ahead and provides the opportunity for the military and veteran community to perhaps leverage those GI Bill benefits to offset some employer costs. And you can see all the additional benefits that's involved on this slide for employers that do end up leveraging the apprenticeships. Next slide, please. So this is something very phenomenal, and also something I wish I knew about when I was in the military, but this is really great. This is called the United Services Military Apprenticeship Program, or USMAP. So this is actually our largest DOL registered apprenticeship program. Essentially, while someone is on active duty, they can go ahead and get an industry recognized certificate card by participating in this. Phenomenal program. Phenomenal program that I believe should be leveraged much more, and more awareness should be brought about for that. Okay, next slide, please. So as imagine you all know, many military skills, they go and they translate into civilian credentials. Licensing and certification can be critical for veterans transitioning into civilian careers, especially in those fields that require industry recognized credentials. So many military occupations, they align with civilian careers that require licensing, such as healthcare, transportation, and skilled trade. So at VETS, in partnership with our Department of Labor colleagues and other agencies, offer resources to help service members and veterans navigate this often, sometimes complex process of attaining these credentials. There are a lot of supportive programs such as the COOL program or credentialing opportunities online for each military branch. There's Mill Gears, and much more, GI Bill reimbursement for certification exams, potentially some military skills test waivers for CDL licenses, and just a few of the available resources to help veterans translate those military experiences into recognized qualifications. Next slide, please. All right, so now on this slide, you should be now seeing American Job Centers, which service all veterans and also service all military spouses too. So these are crucial resources for veterans seeking employment. With centers located nationwide, veterans can go ahead and access career counseling, job listings, and training opportunities that's tailored to their skills and military goals. I did mention it's open to everyone. That includes our military spouse community who are looking to go ahead and re-enter the workforce, maybe perhaps after absences related to PCS moves, overseas tours, to go ahead and find employment services through our AJC network, many of which end up qualifying for special assistance because of their status as dislocated workers. So these centers are directly connected to employment and training opportunities within their local area and can go ahead and best direct military spouses on where to go and what training programs may be available to them. Also, next slide, it's a phenomenal resource for employers as well. So this is actually like my first big major talking point when going ahead and engaging with employers. I mean, it makes too much sense. If you have your target audience going to a particular location, would you not want to go there too? The answer, of course, is yes. So you're having veterans that go ahead and go there, and the slide does a beautiful job where you can see on that left-hand side, you can see services that's provided to that job seeker. And on the right-hand side, you can go ahead and see services that are provided to the employer. So we have trained specialists that go ahead and support the veteran community called Disabled Veteran Outreach Program Specialists, giving them some tailored one-on-one advice. And we also have trained specialists called leavers, or local veteran employment representatives, who essentially serves as a liaison to go ahead and support that employer that's looking at hiring in that local area. Now, I operate at a regional level. You can see I have 2 regions. It is impossible for me to kind of get that full understanding on what those veteran demographics and trends look like within any particular locations. But if there's any individuals that have a good, solid pulse on the veteran job seeking market and trends within their local area, it's certainly our local leavers. Next slide, please. So this slide right here, so you can see a snapshot of a lot of great some demographics are HVRP participant profile. HVRP standing for Homeless Veteran Reintegration Program. So this is a federal program focused exclusively on the reintegration of homeless or at-risk veterans into the workforce. It provides job placement assistance, training, and wraparound services to support long-term employment successes by our grantee partners within our ecosystems. Next slide, we'll go ahead and show some additional resources. As we all know, the benefits of hiring a veteran. The first two resources provide additional benefits to employers. Something, for your information, go ahead and share with any employer partners. The first is a tax credit, and the second bullet is a bonding program for employers who are hiring our veterans who may be involved with the justice system. So, and speaking of our justice system, we are creating strong partnerships with the veteran treatment courts across the country. We can work with you at the state level to go ahead and ensure veterans in these situations go in and get the support and resources that they need. The next slide goes ahead and falls within that one of the P's of protect, right? Protecting our veterans. So in addition to employment support, Vets enforces the Uniform Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, or USERRA, ensuring that service members can return their civilian jobs following military service without discrimination or disadvantage. Several cases were resolved last year, well over 1,000. That the team just does a phenomenal job in protecting our veterans and their rights. Next slide. All right, the next slide is me, where it comes into the promote piece. So our Veterans Employer Outreach Program. So what we do, my RVET colleagues and I, we go ahead and we connect employers with federal, state, local, and other resources. In short, if I'm gonna wrap it up all in a nutshell, we make it easier for employers to find, hire, train, and retain veterans. And of course, there's a lot of minutia that goes involved with that. Next slide. We'll go ahead and provide you with just some of those resources, some of which we already went ahead and covered, that are very supportive for employers to go ahead and find, hire, and train veterans. We do like to make it very tailored. So when we go ahead and meet with our employers, we put in consideration the location that they're at, the industry that they're in. For instance, if it's a manufacturer that we're working for, there's some specific, veteran supportive manufacturing initiatives that we can go ahead and get them plugged into and what have you. A lot more, as you can see on that very bottom link with our employer guide. That is very, very extensive, well put together document, which kind of highlights a lot of those how-tos on streamlining pipelines for federal employers, and then also a lot of great resources for veterans as well. Last but not least, next slide, is our Hire Vets Medallion program. So this is the only federal award that goes ahead and recognizes employers who demonstrate a strong commitment to veteran hiring and retention. So the employers who meet this rigorous criteria, they're honored with this prestigious recognition, which overall enhances their ability to go ahead and attract more veteran talent. The next slide, we'll go ahead and highlight some of that criteria. Now there is a small fee to go ahead and apply for this respective reward, depending on the size of the organization. But this really is a phenomenal way to go ahead and increase your brand and attract more veterans into the organization. So we all know that there's a lot of veteran-friendly employers out there, and I would consider veteran-friendly as your employers that really want to hire veterans. Now, for awardees of this program, I would consider them veteran-ready, where they've been able to go ahead and show at this level through this vetting process, that they very much are committed and veteran ready, based on meeting all the different criteria right here. Okay, and next slide. That goes ahead and wraps it up on my end. There's a great QR code right there that you all can go ahead and go to. Again, if you put in veterans.gov, you can find all these resources, supportive resources for your military and veteran community that you're working with, a lot of data for any perhaps research that you're looking at doing, and much, much more. So thank you so much for your time and attention and all that you're doing to go ahead and support the community. It's really just a very heartwarming and wonderful thing. Appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthew, for all the work that you do and for sharing information with us about DOL vets. I definitely learned a lot. I've worked for the government and with veterans for a long time, and I didn't realize that veterans.gov goes to you all's website until you mentioned it today. Thanks also for highlighting the value of veterans as employees. I might have some coworkers on the call, so I'll say that all of my coworkers are my favorites. But I will say that my favorites are veterans because veterans are always just willing to, meet the mission and get the job done. And you have exemplified that today, sir, by pivoting. Although you couldn't see the slides on our end, you did a great job of pivoting and taking us through your information. So thank you so much. And hopefully we'll have some more questions from the group for you at the end. I want to go ahead and transition us to Dr. Eric Elbajan, who I mentioned earlier, serves as the director of VA's FinVet program. He also serves as a professor of psychiatry at Duke University. Clinical psychologist by training. He started his career at VA almost 20 years ago, running financial education groups, and has worked his way to developing this national program that supports the financial well-being of veterans. So Dr. Elbajan, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Stacy. Thank you for having me here. And Matthew, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. What I'm going to be talking about is how critical what you do and what you're going to hear Jen's doing to improving veterans' mental health and physical well-being. So I started at the VA in 2007. And I'm a clinical psychologist, and we were in Iraq, Afghanistan, and I was seeing veterans. At the time, I was seeing veterans who'd been deployed 3-4 times, and in the news was post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. And I was expecting that's what I was going to be helping veterans with. And I did, but then wanted to know, why is it that you're coming in? Why are you going to come back next week? And I began to hear veterans, an Army veteran said, I want a meaningful job. I heard a Navy veteran say, I want a budget so I can pay for my kids' Christmas gifts. I heard an Air Force veteran say, I'm in debt and I'm scared I'm going to become homeless, and potentially that might make me feel suicidal. And starting then, I wanted to respond to what I was seeing were veterans, in addition to having mental health issues and problems, helping address some of their financial well-being. And what I began to hear were a bunch of stories from veterans about some unique financial challenges faced. And there are 500 of you on this call. If you're veterans or your family members or you work with veterans, a lot of this won't be surprising. So the first thing I learned was that I was seeing veterans had literally paid their first phone bill, light bill, had their first budget a decade after their civilian counterparts. That makes sense. But the impact of it is, unfortunately, predatory lenders knew that also. And so at the time, the highest percentage of predatory lenders and payday lenders were located near military bases. There's still a high percentage. It's gotten better, but I'm seeing veterans who were in the service during those times, and you could see how it's affected their credit ratings and have helped harm them financially decades later. It's still an issue, as you could see from that FTC data. Veterans are not only more likely to be victims of financial fraud and scams, look at how much more they lose, 44% more money. I just read this morning. In 2023, veterans, families, and service members reported $477 million in fraud. That's reported. Not everyone reports. That's the tip of the iceberg. And you heard Matthew talking about protecting our veterans. How can we protect veterans from the scams and fraud? I was hearing stories about this when running groups before this was even considered part of financial well-being and financial literacy. And the stories that I've heard from veterans losing their homes from these and their livelihoods. And unfortunately, a lot of them had gone and gotten jobs and lost their paychecks from these scams. It was heart-wrenching. Younger veterans are at specific risk of becoming delinquent on auto loans, credit card and revolving credit card accounts, and then a review of over 10 million bankruptcy filings showed that veterans were more likely than non-veterans to file for bankruptcy. A paper that we published a month ago comparing veterans to non-veterans more likely to have credit card debt and also buy lottery tickets, gambling, and have payday loans. So veterans have these financial challenges that I began to learn about and wanted to help address at the VA. But then they had mental health and psychological import too. There are a lot of studies about this, and it makes intuitive sense, but look at the numbers. A quarter of soldiers within a day of attempting suicide reported financial problems. A massive review of VA medical records showed financial problems predicted higher risk of suicidal ideation and suicide attempts. This is also the case for recently separated veterans. Veterans with past homelessness and current higher debt had quadruple the rate of suicidal ideation in this national study just published. Now, this is the same in the general population. Adults with unsecured debt are more likely to attempt suicide and more likely to die by suicide. The veterans, as you saw from the previous slide, though, have specific vulnerabilities. So I led a study. It was a nationally representative study of post 9/11 veterans. And if you remember any slide from the few that I'm going to show you, it's going to be, I hope, this one. What we did is we got a random sample of everyone who served since 9/11. This is VA and non-VA, so it's representative. What you could see on the bottom are the number of protective factors that they had in their lives at the beginning of the study. Now, if you look carefully, the good news is those N's show that most veterans had most protective factors. 1 year later, we reached back out to those veterans and asked, are you having thoughts of suicide? And what you could see is that the more protective factors veterans had in their lives, the lower their risk of suicidal ideation 1 year later. That bouncing ball just dropped 92%. And I think that this is really important for thinking about the work that Matthew's doing, work that Jen is doing in terms of housing stability, money to cover basic needs, but you could see spiritual faith, social support, feeling control of one's future, all of those protective factors. Financial well-being doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in the context of the protective factors. And for each one of those that we're able to help veterans have in their lives, that leads to a reduction in them feeling suicidal 1 year later. And so for those of you who are supporting veterans and having those protective factors in their lives, you could see how it helps. Also, the opposite is the case. Financial strain predicts suicide attempts in the United States population. This was another study of about 35,000 Americans, and they were interviewed at the beginning of the study and asked, do you have these financial risk factors in your life? 3 years later, they were asked, did you attempt suicide? What you could see is that those that had those 4 financial risk factors were 20 times, I'll repeat that, 20 times more likely to attempt suicide than those without. And that was controlling statistically for mental health problems, substance abuse problems, and also past suicide attempts and past suicide ideation, meaning this was above and beyond. This talk that you're hearing today, it's a contributor. Financial well-being is related to lower risk of suicide in the general population and in veterans. And what I'm going to show you, this was a data set that a year afterwards, other researchers used that same data set and did something called machine learning Please do not ask me what that is in the Q&A because that is well beyond my expertise. But what they did is they took like 2,800 variables in this massive data set, and they looked at the top 20, the strongest. And number 7 was that item on financial crisis bankruptcy, which we just showed a few seconds ago is related to higher in veterans in terms of bankruptcy, and is the number 7 out of 2,800 predictors of suicide attempts. But it doesn't end there, because it also relates to occupation and income. So 4 of the top 20 predictors of suicide in the general population relate to financial well-being. This is critical to helping address a very important issue for veterans. And there's good news. There's good news. Not only have I learned this from veterans in the group who have actually discovered many of this group that I ran, but this is meta-analysis is a study of studies, and it shows that if you all on this call start doing these things right now, you will start saving money. So, and if you have veterans do this, they will start saving money. These are all proven, and I'm going to share a few important ones. So one of the things that you probably have all heard of SMART goals, make them specific, measurable, achievable, time specific. What we had a veteran in our group who wanted to go to the Grand Canyon, and we helped that veteran come up with a SMART goal. It's going to save $500 a month for 10 months to go to the Grand Canyon in March. But what we did is a second veteran in the group asked, well, why do you want to go? And the first veteran who wanted to go to the Grand Canyon said, well, my family will never forget about it. I've always wanted to go, and we all love nature. And what the veteran who wanted to Grand Canyon didn't realize is that by coming up with the reason, the why it was valuable to do the SMART goal, that actually increases the chance that, and he did save up and go to the Grand Canyon. You could all do that today with yourselves and with veterans. If you have a goal, think about why you value it. Just adding the reason to it, make sure that you're going to keep it on your radar longer. And part of that, you may have noticed, is that veteran was picturing their future self 10 months later. And that's what we realized in our groups, where, for example, one veteran shared that they were spending $20 a day on lottery tickets. And a second veteran in the group calculated, how long have you been doing that? About 10 years. And I forgot the math, but it was like over $100,000, like maybe it's $120,000 on lottery tickets. And the second veteran asked the lottery buying lettering, okay, well, 10 years from now, if you had that $120,000, you'd be what would your future self do? I'd be able to put a down payment on a house, get the van I want. And that became another thing that the research has actually shown, is that imagining your future self, connecting with your future self, is another way to actually begin to save money. I will tell you that one veteran we figured out had spent over $200,000 on cigarettes in 20 years. Again, the second veteran is like, well, what would you do with that $200,000? And think about this. And I'm wondering, many of you probably realize this. One of the predictors of suicide is having foreshortened future, not considering your future self. Helping veterans create a budget and having future goals, something that they want to strive towards, is critical in terms of mental health and also suicide risk. We had funding from the Department of Education to create a curriculum specifically for veterans. And we showed that veterans who use the skills of saving more money, budgeting, working more, connecting with programs like what Matthew was describing, avoiding scams and connecting with tools and resources. They were less impulsive in their buying, greater financial knowledge. You could see more savings and actually increased work. So the good news is, yes, financial strain is related to these difficult to potentially tragic outcomes, but there's something we could do upstream to improve financial well-being. And that's led to the creation of FinVet. So the top line is actually something that a veteran said to me. And he said, Eric, you're not a veteran, you don't understand. You've got to understand this. I'm like, okay, tell me, help me understand. He's like, Eric, when I left the military, well, when I was in the military, there's this paradox. When I was in the military, I had a roof over my head. I had a job. I had my unit. We were a cohesive unit. I had a mission. I had a mission and I had money to cover my basic needs. And when I left the military, the carpet was swept out from under me. I had to pay rent. I had to find a job. I had to make new friends. I had to come up with my own mission. And remember the bouncing ball, realizing that helping veterans have those psychosocial protective factors like financial well-being is such a central part of community success, led to this creation of, and this was just launched past March, so if you haven't heard of it, that's fine. By the way, I hope that some of you, I know I'm not supposed to say that you should do this, but please Google it right now or not. Make sure that you get back to the PowerPoint while you're on it, or go do it on your phones. We've created a one-stop shop for veterans to access the kinds of resources you just heard about, and also beyond that. So veterans were saying to me, we ran these focus groups, and when I leave the military, there's resources in 30 different places. Well, actually, and I can't find them. We made a one-stop shop with the 5 areas that veterans most wanted assistance finding resources on. There's also a top resources where veterans can find out. Veterans have now available free financial counseling, free credit counseling, free estate planning, free legal assistance. There's a whole list of resources under top, including the American Job Centers. I know that Matthew was talking about, then Katrina wrote a comment about that at Joint Lewis McCord. The American Job Centers, we are telling VA staff and sending veterans there all the time now. And the Department of Labor also has another website. It's called, I believe it's called My Next Move, where veterans could put in what their MOS was, and it'll actually show them what jobs match, job searches, how we're in the resources are incredible. We connect to 30 government organizations for all the kinds of topics that you're seeing listed right there, to help veterans reduce impulse buying and gambling, to help avoid scams. We have YouTube videos on our website that the FTC, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the Department of Labor, they've all created these videos to, in 1 minute, a veteran could see why taking out a payday loan is bad. In 1 minute, a veteran could find out about all these discounts, or who housing counselors through HUD provide actually free financial assistance to. VSOs, we just heard about those. There are so many, they're all in one place. I really hope that you all are able to begin to, if I'm giving you a homework assignment, share this with at least one veteran, because they're all here. All the things that links to the programs Matthew was talking about, that Jen is going to talk about, they're all in one place. In fact, if you know of something that is not on there, there's a little button on the bottom, and I will have our web designer put it on there ASAP. So we are doing our best to help veterans achieve these, And as you could see, the research shows, and my clinical work with veterans has shown that veterans who work on their financial well-being are able to really achieve psychosocial well-being and greater mental health. So I want to end on saying that, and if you do know a veteran who is in crisis, please have them call the Veterans Crisis Line. And I want to thank you for your time and the opportunity to present on this. And I hope you all benefit from FinVet and help other veterans and their family members benefit from it as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eric. We really appreciate the work that you do and the resources that you provided today. We always, often talk about the connection between financial well-being and mental well-being, but you showed us a lot of data that really just brings it home. So many of those top 20 reasons around suicide attempts being financially related. And it's also really awesome that you all have all those resources kind of under one roof, one virtual roof, so that folks can search for things that are relevant to them and their journey towards financial well-being. So thanks for that. I know we have a couple of questions popping up for you in the Q&A, so we should be able to circle back to those after we hear from Jen Elder. So I'm going to transition us over to Jen Elder, who serves as the director of SAMHSA's Homeless and Housing Resource Center with Policy Research, Inc. She has worked in this role with over 20 years of experience in policy development and implementation in the homelessness sector, supporting national initiatives for SAMHSA, as well as HUD, VA, DOL for a number of years. She's also served as past chair of the American Public Health Association's Caucus on Homelessness. So Jen, we are looking forward to hearing more about housing and SOAR for veterans, and the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having me here today. There has just been so many wonderful resources shared already. So I'm going to contribute by throwing a few more at you, but links to everything are in the slides. So I'll be kind of doing a broad brush overview. The next slide. Actually, just a quick disclaimer, we are funded by SAMHSA, but that was covered at the beginning of the presentation. So we can go ahead and move on to the first slide. Just in case SAMHSA's Homeless and Housing Resource Center is new to you, I just wanted to give a quick intro. We are a national training center. We focus on evidence-based practices, free resources. Everything's available in English and in Spanish. And our training focuses on trauma-informed care, housing best practices, treatment, harm reduction. So if you are in your role or just curious, working with people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness and just want to know more, or maybe you want some more CEUs in that area, please reach out. All of our resources are free. So with that kind of brief overview, I will dive into kind of what I'm offering today on economic stability. Next slide. So we know I'm kind of going to take a little smaller piece of the pie, really focusing on those whose economic instability puts them at risk of homelessness, or people may be experiencing homelessness. So I want to highlight a few disability benefit programs, and as Stacy mentioned, the SAMHSA funded SOAR model, which assists these veterans. Then at the end, I'll highlight a few housing resources, again, so hopefully we can prevent homelessness. That is the ideal, but if not, that we can help someone resolve their homelessness quickly. So two of the main disability benefit programs that we usually are talking with veterans about are those through the VA and those through the Social Security Administration. Now, I know these benefit programs get confusing and there's a lot of nuance and details with them, but don't worry, there's some resources in the slides that help spell it out pretty, more clearly. Kind of the big pieces that I want you to walk away from with this is you may be working with a veteran who's been denied their VA disability benefits. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't qualify for Social Security disability. The programs are different. They have different criteria. I've spelled out very brief bullet points here. Social Security is looking at their ability to work to a substantial gainful level. And not at all about the conditions of discharge, which is a factor with VA benefits. And the one key takeaway is you absolutely can work while you apply for these benefits. There's a lot of misinformation which out there about, no, you shouldn't work. So just wanted to reiterate that here, that it's not going to affect the application, just work in general if it's not over that substantial level. Next slide. So we take this kind of the approach of income maximization. And so trying to help people understand how all these pieces can be put together. So it is possible to receive Social Security and VA benefits and work. There'll be a tool that I'll show just in a few minutes about a calculator we helped compile for the VA where it's a plug and play, where you can see how this is actually possible to receive all of these income streams. And you don't need to be an expert. Like, again, if you walk away here with the takeaway of we should explore eligibility for these benefit programs, and we should also be exploring, income to the extent that somebody is able to work, that's a great thing. And then connect to these resources here. You don't need to be the expert, but you should find a friend who is. So either through Social Security's Ticket to Work program or veteran service organizations, or as I'll mention next, in the SAMHSA SOAR TA Center. Great expertise in this area. Next slide. So I want to spend a few minutes on this SAMHSA funded model, and this is specifically for people who are experiencing or at risk of homelessness. They don't serve exclusively veterans, but we've been working in close partnership with the VA since 2012 on the SOAR for Veterans initiatives. And one of the big reasons is back then, there was a lot of veterans who just didn't know that they could be eligible for Social Security, that they paid into the system through their military service. And if they're eligible for the benefits, they should apply. So the SOAR model, as you'll see here on the screen, over 1,000 people have been served. They provide application assistance and have a cumulative approval rate of 65% on initial application. And that's huge. So people experiencing homelessness without assistance sometimes only have, maybe a 20 to 30% approval rate on initial application. So we are here to kind of help through the process. Next slide. So with this, if you want to dive more, obviously in, 10, 15 minutes, I can't tell you all about Social Security or how this works, but what I do want to share is if you would like to know more about the process, or if you want to assist someone through it, or if you are going through this application process yourself and you want to be armed with more information to advocate for yourself, there's a free training course. This is on the SAMHSA SOAR TA Center website. Absolutely free, comes with 20 CEUs. It is a bit longer of a training course because if you complete the whole thing, it involves doing a sample Social Security disability application on a fictional applicant that's provided in the course. So you can absolutely register and just read through the information, but for the CEUs, you'll be given a really safe place to practice filling out these forms and preparing that documentation. Next slide. So here's where I want to point out a couple resources. Again, don't need to be an expert, but there are some tools here if you want. I like to think of some of these as little cheat sheets of about VA and Social Security disability. So we prepared this. This is specifically for VA staff, the VA Caseworkers Guide. It was just updated in 2024, and it's basically a step-by-step of where to find information for a Social Security application that's already been input into the VA system. Of course, we don't want to keep asking a veteran these very personal questions over and over. I think that's can be traumatic. So if somebody has already gathered that information, if it's in the home system, let's see, where we can go ahead and find it and not have to ask for all of that information again. Next slide. This next resource we put together for the Supportive Services for Veteran Families program. That said, I think this could be useful for everybody. So this is a great guide for if you just want to know, wait, what was the eligibility criteria for Social Security? Jen said that these income streams can be combined. Is that true? How does that work? If I want to learn more, how do I get involved? This is your go-to electronic workbook to have all those quick questions answered for you. So again, link is on the slide for that. Next slide. This is a VA specific tool, the SSVF Income Navigator tool. What I want to highlight about this one is it's so great for service providers, kind of doesn't matter your role. It just has a great list of potential income streams for you to ask the veteran about. I think this is really great in teaching providers about, making sure to ask those questions, help someone connect with resources, and as a tool for the veteran to explore how they could maximize their income. Next slide. This is another resource. It's a sample income support plan. It is very similar to the tool that I just mentioned. This one was prepared through SAMHSA. It's really, it's mostly just a template in Word of helping the veteran and the service provider track which benefits or employment goals, like what is the veteran working towards? What have they already done? What would be some indicators for some goals for success upcoming? We see a lot of staff turnover in our field too. So I think this can be helpful. And if something like this could be documented in the agency that's supporting the veteran, they don't need to start with square one every time maybe their service provider changes or their care coordinator changes. Again, the less we can ask somebody the same questions over and over, the less trauma we're reintroducing for them. So this is just a kind of a tracker. If it's helpful, it's available in Word, so take it, amend it, use it how it's helpful for you. Next slide. All right, I think, yes, this is the last resource. I feel like I'm just throwing resources at you today. This is the calculator I mentioned. I know that I've worked with Eric for years sharing this. He's been sharing this through his programs too. This is a plug and play tool where you can put sources of income in for VA disability, Social Security disability, and employment. And it just shows, kind of how employment is possible, because there's a huge fear. If I go back to work, if I'm receiving Social Security, they'll just cut my check off and I will lose all of my money. It's a very pervasive myth. This is a tool that you can use to start the conversation to say, actually, there's these work incentives, and this is how it would affect your overall income. So yes, the SSI check will be reduced, but this tool lets lets the veteran see that overall the net income is going to be greater. So this is really a conversation tool. It doesn't replace individual benefits counseling, but I think it can help, someone see that their employment goals and their income goals are possible, and how that will affect any benefits they have earned. All right, next slide. Okay, so that was a lot of tools in terms of economic stability. I feel like, Eric, I have now also given you homework too in checking out the links. I know I put a lot in there, but as you have time to explore that and you have more questions, definitely reach out. What I hadn't mentioned too, and I apologize, is for the SAMHSA SOAR TA Center, where all of those resources are housed, they do have a liaison for every single state in the country, and they have local SOAR leads throughout the community. So, you know, whenever you have questions, there are a ton of people to answer them, to help support you, to help you get started. So there's a big support network there, because we know that Social Security and all of that can be overwhelming. So to kind of start to wrap up my section, wanted to talk a little bit about housing. You know, eviction prevention and going upstream of preventing homelessness is our ultimate goal. That's what we are focused on. And so, you know, as much as you can in your community, I encourage you to plug into those formal and informal networks to distribute this information. I think the information from Matthew and Eric was so great. So I would say take their information, get that out to your networks, as well as, you know, whatever utility assistance, rental assistance, homeless prevention programs are in your community. You know, see how we can get that out to people who are at risk of homelessness, especially who wouldn't feel comfortable self-identifying as such. So how can you just place information maybe at community centers, the VFW, where someone could access it without having to ask you for it. So they could more discreetly get homeless prevention information. And strategize. We are finding, you know, we have seen the homelessness numbers go up consistently for everyone except for veterans. We are still making fantastic progress in ending veteran homelessness. And a lot of it is because the VA uses very unique models of temporary financial assistance, supportive services. Sometimes helping somebody pay a few months of back rent or utility arrears can prevent an eviction and keep them stably housed while you're working on all of these other economic supports. So talk as a community about that. And with this, I've just linked, we have an eviction prevention toolkit because it's through HHRC, our center. It is focused on people with serious mental illness or substance use disorders. But the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness also has a spotlight with a ton of resources on eviction prevention. All right, next slide. Kind of already previewed it. The VA is fantastic. Like the homeless programs office, I really can't speak highly enough of them. We've worked again in partnership with them for well over a decade. They've got great housing programs, supportive services, temporary rental assistance, housing vouchers. Check out all of those resources. But also there's others. There's rural housing. There could be resources through your public housing authority. In your continuum of care. And that's the kind of organization that is funded to help distribute homeless resources in your community. I also just, as we're doing this and thinking about housing, we want to think about, you know, the right types of housing to serve everyone in your community. And so what low barrier housing exists or can we expand upon with harm reduction and housing first principles. We know that when somebody has a stable place to live, it enables them to really focus on their recovery journey, on their economic stability. It's easier to put those things in place when you have a safe place to sleep. And so I really encourage you to think about what's available in terms of that in your community. Next slide. These next few are just want you to dive deeper. I feel like I know tip of the iceberg this one for you. We have a lot more resources on the Homeless and Housing Resource Center website. I can also, during the Q&A, try to answer in the chat some other links if people want specific links for that. And we have a listserv. And then next slide, I wanted to promote the SAMHSA SOAR TA Center. We are partner TA centers, but we are separate. So they've got their own website, courses, directory. I put a link in specifically about the SOAR for Veterans resources. Again, that's something, I mean, I've been working on since 2012 with them. So a lot of that I've helped develop in collaboration with the VA. So there is, gosh, probably like 15 fact sheets and toolkits and things that we've put together over the years there. And with that, I think my next slide is a thank you, and I've preserved some time for Q&A, so I'll pass it back to Stacy.
Thank you so much, Jen. Just really important resources, impactful resources. I was sharing with someone recently that when I started working as a social worker in a case management role, a lot of these things about Social Security, SSDI, housing resources, I learned on the fly, mostly from clients in the process. So it's just really exciting and impactful that there are these formulated resources from technical assistance centers that allow folks to learn about it and even practice a case, as you mentioned, and earn CEUs in the process. So all three of you, just major thanks for the time that it took to prepare this presentation and for the work that you do and for the way that it all comes together. Because I always say that no single entity can do this important work alone. It takes all of us. So it was also really exciting to hear about how the three of you work together in the background and stay connected. So we have a good amount of time for questions and answers today. I want to address a couple of things that have come up in the chat a couple of times in terms of slides and the video recording. So for everyone who has registered, you will receive the slides for this presentation. You will also receive a YouTube link that will come to you with the recording. And apologies that some of you had some sound issues kind of here on the main platform. Our sound has stayed intact the entire time. So when you do receive the video recording, you'll be able to see anything or to hear anything that you may have missed. I also just want to thank some of you who've put information in the chat about how you partner in this space in your neck of the woods. So thank you so much for supporting economic stability resources for SMVF where you live. Also do want to mention before we get too far and before I forget that in addition to this webinar, everyone has given kind of a Cliff Notes version of their program, kind of given you a pathway to get to other information. So in addition to this webinar, we're actually also holding a 3-part learning series where each of these presenters will come meet individually to have their own allotted time to talk about their program. For those learning series sessions, we do have a smaller audience for those. We cap registration to allow the audience and the subject matter experts to engage a bit more. So when you do see that announcement, if there's a specific topic that you're interested in a deep dive on, please do go ahead and register for that so that you can spend a bit more time. If registration is closed, there should be an email address where you can request to be added to the wait list. So wanted to mention those few things before we dive into a few more questions that were popped into the Q&A pod. And thanks to our presenters for answering some of those live. I did want to give the opportunity for the presenters to talk a little bit more about some things that we saw frequently. So the first one I wanted to ask was actually to Matt. There were questions about the National Guard population, which is such an important component of the SMVF population, wondering how the DOL vets resources apply to National Guard folks, as well as business owners. So Matt, do you want to share with us a little bit more about what you entered in the chat and anything else that you'd like to mention?
Oh yeah, so that was all really great questions. So the resources that I've provided, it's open to the whole military and veteran community. So that includes our caregiving population, National Guard and reservists, the whole shebang. Let me see here. So and then for small business owners. So that is also a very good outlet for employment, right? We have a lot of what we call veteranpreneurs, right? And thankfully, we have a lot of really strong partners within our ecosystem that support those efforts. So one that I provided within the chat, and I'm not sure, am I allowed to share my screen here or either way? So for that question that I answered, I provided just a few different resources. Now there's a heck of a lot, right? That veterans can go ahead and leverage, or those entrepreneurs, so to speak. But one thing that I did want to address was like our partners over at IMVF over in Syracuse. They have a program called Onward to Opportunity, which is a no-cost program that's available to pretty much, I mean, practically everyone within the military and veteran community. So active duty military, transitioning out of the military, veteran population, National Guard and reserves, and also spouses. And that doesn't include just active duty spouses, that includes veteran spouses as well. And their program does have they have an entrepreneur program, but they also have another program where essentially an individual can choose one, but one professional certificate to essentially obtain at no cost. So I'm talking about they include the training and the cost of the certificate. That's all applied. So you don't need to leverage GI Bill benefits or what have you. It's something available to employer partners as well too. So they go ahead and they train them up, and of course they want to go ahead and plug them in. But there's a lot of different opportunities from business management related certificates. I know that PMP is a really big one. The cost to go ahead and take a PMP through PMI is like, I think like $2,000. So it's really nice that through the grant funds that university gets, that they can go ahead and provide these trainings at no cost. One thing that's also supportive, and I know that there was a question that I answered related to I think they mentioned extension universities and upskilling opportunities, which is phenomenal. I love, huge fan of lifelong learning. I would like to throw out there that their LinkedIn, our partners over at LinkedIn, they do provide 1 year free of LinkedIn Premium, and that also allows you to get access to those LinkedIn, the LinkedIn Learning platform as well. So that is phenomenal. When it comes to entrepreneurs too, we have partners. And let me see here. I'll go ahead and drop some of these in the chat. I think that might be best.
And Matt, you can also share your screen if you would like.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Great. So can you all see my screen right here?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. You can see my mouse moving around, everything. Woo.
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, so this is that Syracuse program that I was talking about. So they do have an entrepreneurship. You can see entrepreneurship programs as well. You can see their eligibility criteria. So you can see open to active duty military, but you have to be 180 days from getting out of the military. Open to veterans, Guard and Reserve, spouses. So they, as you mentioned, as you saw, they have an entrepreneurship programs. They also have different learning pathways that you can go ahead and obtain that one professional cert. So let's say if you're interested in getting the IT space, or let's say you're already in the IT space and you want to go ahead and get another cert to go ahead and complement your overall portfolio. I mean, go ahead and check this out. A lot of different IT and cyber related certs, as you can see here. And going down a little bit more, you have those business management certs. So project management, PMP, which I mentioned, they got Lean Six Sigma, and they also have HR related certifications as well to include customer service. So great, phenomenal resource. As you can see here, they also have, they welcome private sector partners, because hopefully after they go ahead and get trained up, they can get plugged into those private sector partners. I mentioned LinkedIn Premium, so you can see those eligible members in the military community, they get access to that LinkedIn Learning. The next one kind of applies to those vetrepreneurs. So recently had a call with our partners on American Corporate Partnerships. They just launched a new program specific to entrepreneurs. So this is called ACP Ventures. You can see what they do. They provide a year-long membership with an industry expert to go ahead and support that veteran in their entrepreneurial efforts. You have on-demand resource to go ahead and help support you, and they call it their village of supporters. So you get access to the ACP village, where essentially you can go ahead and drop your questions into like a chat, and then you have other vetrepreneurs who maybe been there, done that, to go ahead and provide you with some guidance for that particular issue. Of course, we have also, there's other partners too. Veterans Growing America. This, might be specific to those within that national capital region, but phenomenal group of individuals. They do an amazing job to go ahead and help support veterans, veterans and their businesses. On the topic of entrepreneurs, you also have our partners over at Small Business Administration. So within the TAP curriculum, which is an overall joint effort with DoD, VA, vets, Small Business Administration, they have Boots to Business. Now, if you missed that while in service, that's okay, because you can go ahead and go to their website and get access to it still, to include all their different resources. So that's all available to you. one other, which is with SVAs, is VBOX centers. So your veteran business outreach centers. So you can see they have it broken down by particular regions. It'd be very wise to go ahead and connect with those sites to go ahead and support your efforts. So lastly, and this kind of drawing gears back to lifelong learning. So you can actually go ahead and get access to Coursera for free. And they changed things up in recent years where they allow only certain VSO partners. This is one of them of many. Hire Heroes USA is another one. Hiring Our Heroes is another one as well. But you can get access to that for 1 year long to that Coursera platform where you can get, I know Google uses that for their various different certifications that they offer. Microsoft has it. There's a lot of universities that put up their material on there. And that's a great way for maybe those transitioning service members who are unsure on what they want to do. Maybe they don't want to do what they're doing right now. So they can go ahead and at least take an IT course, and see if that's the right fit for them. And if they love it, that's great. They can go ahead and get that upskilling at no cost for that one year free. If they don't, then they can go and switch over and do something else. And then last but not least, I just want to throw out there, I mean, we have a very comprehensive list of resources right here. I got our Vets Resource Guide. It's just a short 52 or 54 pages, but you can see it got a whole variety of different resources available to you, depending on what you're trying to do. So again, I mean, veterans.gov, if you type that in, you're going to go ahead and go to our site right here. All these resources, it's open to everyone in the military and veteran community, to include our National Guardsmen. I know that was kind of long-winded, but I hope that helped out in kind of at least making things a little bit more visual and interactive for you all.
That was really helpful to identify where to go for additional resources. So thank you so much for highlighting that. I have a question that came up for Eric Elbajan. I know that during your talk, you mentioned the free financial counseling piece for veterans, and we definitely had a number of questions about that in the chat that piqued interest for folks. So can you talk a little bit more about that free program and how folks can access that?
Yeah. So what you could see is our website. I'm sharing it right now. So type in FinVet into Google. Stacy, are you able to, is everyone seeing this?
Yep, we can see it.
Great. And then it's the top of the top resources right here. So it's difficult to find otherwise, but right now veterans are entitled to either what's really, this is a game changer, because a couple of years ago, if I had a veteran who needed to see someone in my group, I could not, as a VA employee, I cannot say you can go to this business or that. I can't endorse. So I would say, listen, you have to go back to your bank or get a certified credit counselor. But right now, through the VBA, and it just depends on what the veteran's financial needs are. If they're in debt, have them talk to a certified credit counselor. If they're thinking about retirement, older veteran, have them, and this is one of the main things the accredited financial counselors are doing. So I think that that's really important. And then just to let you know too, is that to sort of springboard of what Matthew was just saying, we have links to all the local vets offices in case you need those. This is the My Next Move, which I was talking about before, where someone could put in their MOS and it begins to say what the careers that are linked to it. And then and this is going to be the segue to Jen, we also have links to the SOAR program. But look for FinVet. It's the top of the top resources, which I hope you're able to be able to access through that.
Thanks so much, Eric, for giving us a little bit of a deeper dive on that topic. I'll have a couple of questions for Jen as well. We had some questions in the chat about specific populations of veterans. especially justice-involved veterans and older adult veterans came up as populations where folks had questions about specific resources for those groups. Anything that you'd like to share from your organization?
Just a couple of things I'll highlight. I know we're coming close to the end of the session today. I put the link into the, maybe we can get into the main chat. For the Veterans Justice Outreach Program, that's through the VA. They're fantastic. They can help somebody navigate that. There's a lot of veteran treatment courts. And so they have a lot of good resources there for justice-involved veterans. Also, since Eric had mentioned the SOAR website, I know that the SAMHSA SOAR TA Center has a good amount of resources on justice-involved adults, not veteran specific, but adults. And then I'm multitasking, grabbing one more link. There was a question about serving older adults. This is not SOAR or veteran specific as such, but HHRC, we have a self-paced online training course that we just released. Thanks for getting that link in there, about specifically supporting older adults experiencing homelessness. This gives a great overview of other systems and resources to connect them with, also specialized supports that they need as they're aging. I know other national partners are really focused on older adults right now. There's a lot coming from the VA and HHS. So, you know, there are other things out there. I will make a note in when I do my next session with this group, I can highlight and flag some of those resources. So great.
Well, I just want to thank the three of you for providing a wealth of information in 90 minutes that went by really quickly. I know again that you all are also doing your learning series down the road. So thank you for agreeing to speak for us 2 times. Get a 2 for 1 special with you all as speakers. So we really, really appreciate your time as well as the work that you do. And again, thank you to the audience for joining us today and for your commitment to our service members, veterans, and their families. Have a good day, everyone.